223 wins. An offense so revolutionary that the entire league copied it. A quarterback who became a Hall of Famer under his system. And 0 Super Bowl rings. That is not just bad luck. That is a career haunted by what-ifs. Every coach on this list is in the Hall of Fame, or will be soon. Every single one of them changed the game in ways that are still visible today. They won Coach of the Year awards. They turned terrible franchises into contenders. They developed quarterbacks, revolutionized offenses, and built dynasties that dominated the regular season. But when the confetti fell in February, they were never the ones standing underneath it. Some of them came within seconds. One of them lost 4 straight Super Bowls and became a punchline, despite being one of the greatest coaches who ever lived. Another one invented an entire offensive system that 30 NFL teams still use today, and he never got to hold the Lombardi trophy that his system helped others win. This is not a list of failures. This is a list of the most successful coaches in NFL history who were denied the one thing that defines a coaching legacy. And the stories of how they came so close and why they fell short will change the way you think about greatness. If you want football content built on research, not hot takes, subscribe right now. Let's go!
We start at number 10 with a coach whose winning percentage is better than most Hall of Famers, George Allen. 116 wins, 47 losses, and 5 ties over 12 seasons as a head coach with the Los Angeles Rams and Washington. That is a .706 winning percentage. Absurd. Allen was famous for trading away draft picks to acquire veteran players, coining the phrase, "The future is now." He believed in winning immediately, and he did. He took the Rams to the playoffs in his very first season in 1966. He took Washington to the Super Bowl after the 1972 season, leading them to an 11-3 record and the NFC Championship. But in Super Bowl VII, the Washington team lost to the Miami Dolphins, the only undefeated team in NFL history, 14-7. Allen never returned. He coached until 1977, consistently winning, but never got another shot at a championship. What made Allen so effective was his attention to detail and his ability to get the absolute maximum effort out of veteran players who other teams had written off. He was a master motivator who understood that winning in the NFL required more than just talent. It required belief, preparation, and an organizational culture that prioritized winning above all else. His teams were always prepared, always disciplined, and always competitive. But the one thing he could not overcome was the Dolphins' perfect season in Super Bowl VII. That Miami team was a machine, and Allen's Washington squad simply could not match their execution when it mattered most. George Allen is in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He revolutionized how teams approached free agency and veteran leadership. He won everywhere he went, except the Super Bowl. And that one missing ring is why most casual fans have never heard his name. Number 9, Chuck Knox. 193 wins over 22 seasons with the Rams, Bills, and Seahawks. Knox was a grinder, a coach who built tough, physical teams that won games in the trenches. He took 3 different franchises to the playoffs, a feat very few coaches have accomplished. He went to the playoffs in 11 of his 22 seasons. He won Coach of the Year with the Rams in 1973. He turned the Seattle Seahawks into a playoff team in the 80s when nobody expected them to compete. But Knox never reached a Super Bowl. He came close. His Rams teams in the 70s were legitimate contenders. His Bills teams in the early 80s had talent. But every single time in the NFC or AFC championship game, Knox came up short. He is not flashy. He never created a revolutionary system. But Chuck Knox won nearly 200 games across 2 decades and 3 franchises. And the fact that he never reached a Super Bowl is one of the great overlooked tragedies in coaching history. Number 8, Dan Reeves. 190 wins over 23 seasons, 4 Super Bowl appearances, 0 wins. Reeves took the Denver Broncos to 3 Super Bowls in the 1980s. They lost all 3.
Then he took the Atlanta Falcons to Super Bowl 33 after the 1998 season. They lost to the Broncos, the team Reeves used to coach, 34-19. 4 chances, 4 losses. Reeves is one of only 2 coaches in NFL history to take 2 different teams to the Super Bowl and lose with both. The other is also on this list. But Reeves was not a bad coach. He turned terrible Broncos teams into consistent contenders. He built the foundation that John Elway played on. He took a Falcons team that had been irrelevant for years and made them a Super Bowl contender in 1 season. He was adaptable, smart, and respected across the league. But in the biggest games, the moments that define legacies, Dan Reeves could not break through.
Number 7, Jim Mora. And this one hurts because Mora was so close so many times. He coached the New Orleans Saints from 1986 to 1996 and the Indianapolis Colts from 1998 to 2001. He took the Saints to the playoffs 4 times, which does not sound impressive until you realize that before Mora, the Saints had never won a playoff game in franchise history. Mora gave that franchise its first taste of postseason success, but he could never get past the divisional round. His Saints teams would dominate the regular season and then collapse in January. The most painful moment came in 1991, when the Saints went 11-5 and lost to the Atlanta Falcons in the wild card round. Mora is famous for his playoffs rant in 2001 when, as Colts head coach, his team was eliminated from playoff contention. He screamed at reporters, "Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs! You kidding me? Playoffs?" The clip became legendary. But the tragedy is that Mora cared about the playoffs more than almost anyone. He just could never win when he got there. 125 wins, 4 playoff appearances with the Saints, a playoff berth with the Colts, and 0 Super Bowls. Jim Mora deserved better. Number 6, and this is the most important entry on this list because Don Coryell changed football forever. You know the Air Coryell offense? The vertical passing attack that every NFL team runs some version of today? That is his. Coryell coached the St. Louis Cardinals and San Diego Chargers from 1973 to 1976. His offenses were explosive, revolutionary, and years ahead of their time. Dan Fouts threw for over 4,000 yards in 3 consecutive seasons under Coryell, something that had never been done before. The Chargers were one of the most exciting teams in football in the early 80s, but they never reached a Super Bowl. They lost in the AFC Championship game in 1980 and 1981. Both times, they were 1 win away. What makes Coryell's story even more painful is that his teams were often undone not by their offense, which was historically great, but by their defense. The Chargers could score with anyone, but they could not stop elite offenses when it mattered most. In the 1981 AFC Championship game, the Chargers lost to the Cincinnati Bengals in one of the coldest games in NFL history. The temperature at kickoff was minus 9 degrees Fahrenheit, with a wind chill of minus 59. The Chargers, built for the warm weather of San Diego, simply could not handle the elements. That loss haunted Coryell for the rest of his career. Coryell retired in 1986 without a ring. And here is the tragedy. Almost every modern offensive coach has studied Coryell's system. Bill Walsh adapted it. Mike Martz built the greatest show on turf using Coryell's principles. Andy Reid, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, all of them run concepts that trace back to Don Coryell. He invented the blueprint that won other coaches' Super Bowls, and he never got to hold the trophy himself. Coryell was finally inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2023, decades after he should have been. But the ring? That never came. And that is why he is number 6. We are entering the top 5 now. And these are not just great coaches who fell short. These are legends. A coach who won 14 division titles and never won a championship. A coach who revolutionized defense and lost the Super Bowl by 1 yard. A coach who built a dynasty in college and could not replicate it in the NFL. A coach who lost 4 straight Super Bowls and is still one of the best to ever do it. And at number 1, a coach with the second most wins in NFL history who never held the Lombardi Trophy. Subscribe if you are not already. This is where it gets legendary. Number 5, Bud Grant. 158 wins over 18 seasons with the Minnesota Vikings. 4 Super Bowl appearances, 0 wins. Grant took the Vikings to Super Bowl 4, 8, 9, and 11. They lost all 4, 3 of them to dynasties: the Kansas City Chiefs, the Miami Dolphins twice, and the Oakland Raiders. But here's what people forget. Bud Grant built a machine in Minnesota. He won 11 division titles. 11! His teams were physical, disciplined, and relentless. He coached in freezing temperatures at Metropolitan Stadium without a heater on the sideline because he wanted his team tougher than the opponents. Grant is in the Hall of Fame. He is one of the most respected coaches in NFL history. But 4 Super Bowl losses is a weight that never lifts. The Vikings were so close, and Bud Grant, for all his brilliance, could never finish. That is not a failure. That is a tragedy.
Wait, you are thinking, Pete Carroll won a Super Bowl with the Seahawks. He beat the Broncos in Super Bowl 48. True, but before we get there, we have to acknowledge what happened 1 year later. Super Bowl 49, Seahawks versus Patriots. Seattle is on the 1-yard line, 26 seconds left. They have Marshawn Lynch, one of the most physical running backs in football. 1 yard. Hand it to Lynch. Game over. Championship. Instead, Carroll calls a pass play. Russell Wilson throws. Malcolm Butler intercepts. Patriots win. That decision, that one play call, has defined Pete Carroll's legacy as much as the Super Bowl he won. But here is the real reason Carroll makes this list in spirit. Before Seattle, Carroll coached the New England Patriots from 1997 to 1999. He went 27-21, but never made it past the divisional round. He was fired. Bill Belichick replaced him. Belichick won 6 Super Bowls with the same franchise that let Carroll go. Carroll had to rebuild his career in college at USC, where he won 2 national championships. Then he returned to the NFL and won 1 Super Bowl. But the ghost of that interception and the knowledge that Belichick won 6 with the team Carroll could not win with haunts his resume. Carroll is a Hall of Fame coach, but he could have had more. And that 1 yard will follow him forever.
Hold on. Jeff Fisher? On a list of best coaches? Yes. And hear me out. Fisher coached for 22 seasons with the Houston Oilers, Tennessee Titans, and Los Angeles Rams. He took the Titans to Super Bowl 34 after the 1999 season. They lost to the Rams 23-16 on the most famous tackle in NFL history. Mike Jones stopped Kevin Dyson 1 yard short of the end zone as time expired. 1 yard. Fisher never got back, and his overall record is just barely above 500. So why is he on this list? Because the Titans teams he built in the late 90s and early 2000s were consistently competitive, despite not having elite quarterback play. He developed a defensive identity that made Tennessee one of the toughest outs in the AFC. He took the Titans to the playoffs 6 times. He is one of the longest tenured coaches in NFL history, and he was 1 yard away from a Super Bowl victory that would have completely changed his legacy. Jeff Fisher is not a Hall of Famer, but he was 1 play away from being remembered as a champion. And that 1 yard, that 1 tackle, is why he belongs on this list.
Number 2, Marv Levy. 4 Super Bowl appearances, 4 losses, all in a row. Levy coached the Buffalo Bills from 1986 to 1997. He built one of the greatest dynasties in NFL history. The Bills went to 4 consecutive Super Bowls from 1990 to 1993.
They lost to the Giants, they lost to Washington, they lost to the Cowboys twice. The Bills were dominant. Jim Kelly, Thurman Thomas, Bruce Smith, Andre Reed. That roster is filled with Hall of Famers, and they could not win the big one. Not once. Marv Levy is in the Hall of Fame. He won more games than most coaches ever will. But 4 straight Super Bowl losses is a burden that no coach has ever carried. The Bills became a punchline, but they should not have been. Reaching 4 straight Super Bowls is an achievement that no team has matched since. Levy built a juggernaut, but the football gods were not kind. And now, Marv Levy is remembered not for the dynasty he built, but for the championships he could not win. That is unfair, but it is the truth.
Number 1. Marty Schottenheimer. 200 wins, 13 playoff appearances, 5 division titles, and 0 Super Bowls. Not even 1 appearance. Schottenheimer coached the Cleveland Browns, Kansas City Chiefs, Washington, and San Diego Chargers over 21 seasons. He has the 8th most wins in NFL history. He won everywhere he went. But in the playoffs, Schottenheimer was 5-13. He could not win in January. His Browns lost heartbreaking AFC championship games to the Broncos in the late 80s, including the drive and the fumble. His Chiefs teams in the 90s were dominant in the regular season and collapsed in the playoffs. His Chargers went 14-2 in 2006, with LaDainian Tomlinson winning MVP. They lost in the divisional round at home to the Patriots. Schottenheimer was fired immediately after. 200 wins, and he was fired because he could not win a Super Bowl. The tragedy of Marty Schottenheimer is not just that he never won a championship. It is that he was so close so many times, and each loss felt like a new form of heartbreak. The drive, the fumble, the Montana comeback, Lynn Elliott missing 3 field goals against the Colts in the playoffs, Marlon McCree fumbling the interception against the Patriots. Every single playoff loss had a defining moment that crushed not just Schottenheimer, but everyone who believed in his teams.
And yet, despite all of that pain, Schottenheimer never stopped competing. He never became bitter. He coached with integrity, discipline, and respect for the game until the very end. That is the cruelest irony in NFL history. Marty Schottenheimer is not in the Hall of Fame, and he should be. But because he never reached a Super Bowl, his legacy has been diminished. 200 wins mean nothing if you cannot win in January. And that is the tragedy of Marty Schottenheimer. He was one of the best coaches who ever lived, and the game never gave him his moment. 10 coaches, over 1,600 combined wins, Hall of Fame careers, revolutionary systems, and 0 Super Bowl rings between them. That is not failure. That is football, the cruelest, most unforgiving sport on earth. Which coach do you think deserved a ring the most? Drop a comment. And if this video gave you something, subscribe. I will see you in the next one.